All right, thanks for joining us again. Make sure to join our Facebook group at Wish I Was RVing. So today we're going to go over a common problem that everybody asks about, but very few people address correctly, and that is black tank poo pyramid. And why do I get it? How do I prevent it? All right, so first, let's go over this first. Okay, this is your standard household toilet. You got the tank at the top full of water. You got your bowl. Along the rim, there's the little spigots that kind of help wash the rim. You've got this big hole at the front, which is where most of the water comes out. They call that a siphon jet generally. And that's where most of the water comes out and pushes the waste and the tissue and all down this pipe to, go into your house drains. Okay, now the thing is with this toilet is it uses gravity. All this water has gravity pushing on it. Negative 9.8 meters per second squared. And that gravity is what causes this siphon jet to be able to have such power when you're flushing your toilet. We all know we've counted on that thing. Please, you push the handle. Please get that down there. I don't want to have to plunge, So this toilet basically works off of gravity and water pressure to make it work, all right? Modern toilets use about 1.5 gallons per flush. Old school, they used to use up to 5 gallons. I was reading in the 70s, some toilets used 5 gallons, which is why they would overflow all the time, because these bowls don't hold 5 gallons of water. I know I had that happen when I was a kid. You had to actually take the lid off and pull up the plunger because the toilet would start overflowing on the floor. So now we use 1.5 gallons per flush. They've made toilets much better so that they don't get clogged as often. All right, our RV toilets, they don't have any of this. They don't really have the gravity because it's not above the bowl. The water's in the bowl, so there's not really extra weight of water and gravity pushing anything down. So here's some different types of tanks as I was researching. Let's say we're using a 40-gallon tank. It doesn't matter how many gallons it is, but this is what my tank looks like. From the schematics, my Thor Windsport, the schematics PDF that I have supplied by the manufacturer. So these toilet tanks have to fit inside the cross members that are built on top of the F53 frame. So often there's only about 6 to 8 inches of space for those cross members, and these manufacturers have to fit stuff in between those cross members. So that's what's going on here. Is this part of the tank, this big part, is where my dump valve is. So this is the dump valve on each tank. At the bottom of each tank, there's the dump valves. This is where the pipes say come in. I know on mine, my pipe comes in approximately right there. All right. But yeah, so this part has to fit in between the cross members. This part is off in a compartment, so they make it bigger. But this is why your tanks might be like 6-8 feet long, but they're not very deep. Like I said, they have to fit within the space of a 6-inch cross member on a lot of these F53 frames. Tiffins, things like that work on buses, they're probably different because they're all customized. They don't order their frames from Ford and keep it that way. They can customize whatever they want. They might order a bus frame, but then they tear it apart and do whatever they want. So anyway, if we're looking at this, okay, if I keep water in my tank, I have a 40-gallon tank, and I put water in my tank, and everybody says, you got to keep water in the tank to keep the poo pyramid from forming. If I were to fill my tank up to the point where my toilet exit valve was or essentially there was water where all the solid waste came out, I would mostly be wasting water. I would have probably 30 gallons of water in my tank before I got the water level up to this mark where people say you have to have the water so the solids don't stick. Okay, here's my other problem. Okay, you go to the beach, all right, you're at the beach, here's the water, you take a bucket of sand. Let's draw a bucket of sand, all right? Here's the sand. And you dump that sand into a little bit of water, maybe like 2 inches of water. Does the sand all spread out evenly? Or does the sand kind of make a big pile here and then a little bit goes to the side? Because that's what happens. The solids, when you dump your solid tank, they don't spread out evenly in both directions, right? Unfortunately, they form a little pile. If you don't have any water helping it down, it just kind of drops and forms a little pile. Even with water there, solids sink generally. And unless you have an awful lot of water, in my case, I would probably have to have 35 gallons of water. So that leaves me dumping after 5 essentially 5 people use the restroom, I have to now dump my tank because my tank's already almost at capacity because I got water up to the fill line. Now some other tanks look like this. A little bit of a better design for you folks because at least you don't have to put 35 gallons of water in there. All right, you might be able to get away with 20, but still, you're cutting your tank capacity in half by pre-filling this tank with 20 gallons of water so that your solid wastes and whatnot will fall into water. This is a great tank design. I saw this online. I don't know who's got that, but essentially the pipe falls just right into a big, big open space. And of course you could put 3, 4, 5 gallons of water in there. You'd have no problem. That's a great design. I don't know how many people have that. I would doubt that many. I would think most people have these two styles here. So how do we prevent the poo pyramid from forming? Well, because we don't want to fill this up with 30, 35 gallons of water. Same with this one. I mean, who wants to put 20 gallons of water? You're going to be there all day filling your black tank with 20 gallons of water. So what I do is I keep a 1 gallon, actually I keep 2 1-gallon water jugs next to the bathroom. And that way when you need to flush, you use the 1 gallon water jug. You're using a full gallon of water. You fill up the bowl as much as you can. You leave a little bit in there to wash anything extra down. But you need to use a good bit of water when you have these kinds of tanks. Water in the tank is not really going to make a difference. It's the water that you're flushing down with that is going to help prevent the clogs. So when you get that water coming down with the solid waste, that may help spread it out. And there's still no guarantee. I mean, the tank designs are not terrific. They're nothing like your home toilet. So, but yeah, when you hear people say use lots of water, correct. Manufacturers recommend you use at least a ½ gallon to 1 full gallon of water to flush your toilet. And I absolutely agree. I've been doing that this trip. I used to get poo pyramids a lot. Maybe some people have seen my post before where I have a steek, I call it. I don't like to use the steek. It is essentially just a 5th wheel puller, a manual awning crank. People pull dairy. If you're working at dairy, you pull the milk crates full of milk with these things. But that's what I use because one time I actually had to get a real stick and I was like, please don't break in the tank. Please don't break in the tank. I don't know what I would have done. So I use a metal stick because there's no way it's going to break down in there. I've had to do that too often. This trip I have not had a problem because we've been flushing with a gallon of water every time we have solids in the bowl, and it's working great. So yep, this is your little lesson here. It's all about how much water you're flushing with and not about how much water you have in the tank.